All right, everyone. Good day. Welcome to this new session of the Single Source, the product data podcast by pimvendors.com. I'm Stefan Spijkers. I'm one of the co-founders of pimvendors.com. And today we have in the studio with us Chris, my co-founder, and Susan Walsh, the
Hi.
classification guru. Hi, Susan. Before we go into the introductions, just a quick round of housekeeping. So we'll be recording this session. You can, of course, watch this later if you're not able to join live or you have to leave early. We'll be publishing this on our podcast stream. We're on Apple Podcasts or any other Spotify and any other channel you're getting your podcasts from. So be sure to check us out there and subscribe so you don't miss any other episodes. And if you have any questions, this is a live session. Drop your questions in the Q&A on the right-hand side. There's a comments box and we'll be trying to weave your questions into the conversation we're going to have with Susan. Before we dive into the topic at hand, maybe a quick round of introductions. Chris, you go first, and then Susan, quick intro.
I'm Chris. I'm working in the e-commerce space for more than 25 years already. And I've seen quite a lot of companies struggling with bad data. And I'm really curious also to know from Susan what's going on. And I'm happy to join in this podcast today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Walsh, known as the classification guru, fixer of dirty data. For 9 years, I have been cleaning and classifying organizations' data from procurement spend data to product material descriptions. I have seen the worst of the worst and happy to share all those insights and learnings so that you can A, feel better about your own data, or B, learn some tips on how to prevent that from going forward.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good place to start, is that everyone has dirty data, right? It's not
Yeah.
that no one is unique in this. Everyone's data could definitely be better. And there's no shame, I think, in admitting that the current data mess that you're living in is a mess, but that you can improve it as well. And I think every organization that we have interacted with is, to a certain point, unhappy with their product data, whether that is because they have duplicates or incorrect data or missing data. Basically, all the different problems you can have with dirty data. I would like to just to quickly start with some examples and share those. And I think if the audience has some examples of dirty data, feel free to share those as well. And then use those as example cases to learn, well, what the different steps are when it comes to data cleansing, because we're going to go from dirty data to great quality data. That's, of course, the goal. And also, so how those steps would look like, or how that process would look like. But let's start at sort of the example cases. What is dirty data? How do you recognize it? And later get to how you can fix it. Do you guys have any examples of organizations with dirty data? And I don't think we have to name names, but I do think it's insightful to share some examples here.
I mean, I've seen it across all industries, all companies, all locations, but certainly within manufacturing, I know there's a lot of issues with, product data. I think it's also really important to say that we're not talking about perfect data here. It just needs to be better quality. There is no such thing as perfect data. And I think that there's a bit of kind of ignorance is bliss. We know it's dirty, but we don't want to open the lid and actually find out how dirty it is, because it's going to cause bigger problems. But I think with the introduction of more AI into organizations, people are having to address this more as an issue. Because the AI won't work properly if you don't have clean data. And the kind of things that I have seen, classic is typos, misspelt names, products, unclear abbreviations or multiple abbreviations of the same thing. So like a screw, for example, could be abbreviated maybe 4 or 5 different ways, which leads to multiple different versions of the same product. Missing or incomplete information in the wrong columns. Maybe you've got your dimensions mixed up. I've even heard a story about somebody putting the dimensions of a TV in as 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. I think it was supposed to be a meter by a meter. So, and also I think with global data and different countries, we are not always talking in the same units of measure. are we? So it's about being clear about what are the units of measure? Is it centimeters, inches, etc. Weights as well. All those good things.
Yeah.
I don't want to hog all the limelight, Chris. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, well, what I see is also with the merging of companies, when they acquire a company and you have 80% overlap in the assortment, but it's completely different data. And then you're talking about maybe two companies, but let's say you have five, six, seven, eight companies coming together, which often happens. They keep working their own way because there is no way to communicate with each other, and so there cannot be a global strategy on purchasing products, for instance, because they don't know what products they are using, and they are repeating every step in every company, also in different ways, but uh, yeah, that that costs a lot of money and a lot of effort. Instead of maybe two persons doing the job, 10 persons doing the same thing.
I think there's a big change management piece in there too, because
Yeah,
there's an awful lot of, well, we've always done it this way. We're not going to change. Why should we have to change? Even if it doesn't mean that it makes your life easier. So it's, I always say data problems are people problems, and they're the people that we really need to work on to help improve the data.
yeah, and and
I
and
just want to
there's
apply a tool, Susan, or just ask ChatGPT to fix this for me. Why are you making this more difficult for me?
Oh,
Um,
well, if only it worked like that, right? It's what you put in is what you get out. So if you are putting in messy data, you are going to get out messy data too. And if you're not clear on your what you want the GPT to do, it will do its own thing as well. And I've seen that with the tool that we have. We have a master list and we normalize company names, but anything that's not on our master list goes through a set of rules in GPT. And I've seen it do things like Welsh cleaners, Welsh hairdressers, Welsh lawyers, and it sees the word Welsh, thinks that's the common denominator, and so it calls it the Welsh group. I've even seen there's Kaiser Healthcare in the US, and there's also Kaiser Permanent, which is a recruitment company. It saw the word Kaiser and decided to normalize everything to Kaiser Healthcare. Didn't tell it to do that, it just decided. So, you have to be so careful and check these things because it can kind of end up creating more problems than it solves if you're not careful.
Yeah, you need to understand the context of data before you even can start cleansing things in this way. Yeah.
And I think another thing is, a lot of people are using AI now, but they don't necessarily check what the output is, and they don't know what is right and what's wrong. Knowing and understanding your data is really important. Knowing how to check what the AI has given you to verify that it's right or wrong is super important. And I think we need to have more skills around that as well.
Yeah, and knowing your data, when we talk about retail, then I think category management is one of the first steps. And mostly in the traditional way, they're not busy with managing data. They're busy with managing their products, and they buy things, or the buyer buy things, and they are selling things. And I mean, they're not dealing with data; they're dealing with products. And I think that this needs a shift in organizations, that there are two different streams. One stream is the physical product stream, and the other stream is the data stream.
Yeah.
And that's something which I see in a lot of companies. This is not in their mindset. It's not how they are thinking. So you need really people who understand the data around in this case, around the product.
Ownership's a big thing too. Like it's not our problem, that's someone else's problem, but we don't know whose problem it is. It's just we know it's not ours. We're not going to deal with it. But I
Yeah,
think it's really important for everybody to take ownership of the data. Like we all have maybe responsibility for parts of it.
yeah. Because when everybody has responsibility, there's no
yeah.
responsibility. So you really need to organize it in a, well, call it hierarchy way, so you can have an escalation path when things go wrong. And that's when things go right, there is no problem. And we all know it it doesn't always go right.
Well, it's not even that it's as long as there's no problems, we'll just keep going. We might know the data's not right and not good, but it's not causing any issues right now, so we'll just keep going, and then something massive disaster happens, and suddenly it needs to be fixed urgently. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, over the years, I've seen that there tends not to be any budget to fix these problems until a problem has occurred, and then it becomes urgent or business critical. Which is a shame because if you had fixed it before the problem had occurred, it would have been a lot more cost effective and less
Mhm.
stressful.
But I mean, that's a typical problem when we get to data quality, right? Or dirty data is that it is seen as a cost, not as a potential return on
It's an
investment.
investment, right? You're investing in not just your data, but your organization, your efficiencies, your bottom line. You're being more profitable because there's less errors. You're not shipping the wrong products. You're not having to return goods and send something else out. You're not spending time issuing refunds, processing XYZ. You can um, ship product more efficiently because it's right first time. There's all those hidden little benefits that nobody really thinks about that are,
Yeah, you don't have
all
duplicate
add up.
stock. Yeah,
I
yeah,
see two situations in this case. One situation is that where you already have bad data, and one situation where you can start with your data, and starting with new data gives the opportunity to start it in the correct way and to have your standards in place and etc. But this almost never is the case, to be honest. You always start with an organization, or you enter an organization where data is already there and it's polluted, and it's
Yeah.
polluted in a way that it's logical because it has never had any focus on data, and that's a mind shift, I think. Yeah,
Yeah. And then you inherit
yeah,
dirty data from other organizations that you've acquired
yeah, yeah. I
with
mean,
all
yeah,
their
it's
bad
never.
habits.
or also like you're sending a spreadsheet to your supplier. Please fill in the gaps, and okay, and what do they fill in, and how do they fill it? Are there just fields which where they can fill in some text, or are they guided in things? And even if they are guided, uh, uh, do they follow the rules and all these kind of
Probably
questions?
not. I prefer to just get their raw data and figure it out and match it to myself. I think that kind of minimizes the errors because, they might not realize the importance of what they're filling in and go, "Oh, I'll just put this number in. It doesn't really matter."
Yeah, and then you go to this television 1 by 1 centimeter. Yeah, okay, we need to go on in the process, so we have to fill in something. I'll just put a one in there. I mean, that's
I've
we see
seen
this
this with
quite often.
address information. It's like you can't save the record without putting some information in the cell. So they go, address not available. So that becomes the address.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
And
never
then
been
it
fixed
looks like you
afterwards.
have an address, but you
Yeah,
don't.
I mean, what we have sort of seen now is data quality is not a problem until it becomes a problem,
Uh-huh.
right? The burning platform needs to start burning before you start extinguishing the fire, which is unfortunate. I would say to yeah, at least, but it's also a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
I think we all appreciate on this side of the table that having good quality data or having oh, a good quality a good quality data is the result of a process, right? And
yeah,
as you already mentioned, Susan, it starts with that process. It starts with the people, maybe even.
yeah,
Um, so that's where we should start. But maybe before we go in even deeper, or before we start exploring sort of potential fixes to that, maybe dive in a bit deeper in what do we actually mean by dirty data or by cleansing data. I think the terminology is such an important thing. And some people say data cleansing is just the mapping of your supplier data to your own internal product data model, the way you want to have the data represented in your organization. But there's, yeah, depending on how you want to split it, there's maybe 6 or 7 or maybe even 9 distinct steps within, yeah, classification or cleansing. Sorry, cleansing. Classification could be one of those steps. Let's quickly explore what actually happens in the cleansing stage. So you get product data from your input sources. Let's put it that way. Could be suppliers, could be a data pool, could be a spreadsheet, could be internal data from your ERP or your PLM, your product lifecycle management tool. And then what happens then?
Well, I mean, at the very basic level, dirty data is anything that's incorrect or not right. So you want to be looking through your product data to identify where there's information that might not be right. And it can be simple things like if you normally, the way I see it is product codes kind of follow a numerical order, and it's similar product codes are next to each other in terms of like, if it ends in a 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you filter product codes numerically high to low, and then you should see similar products grouped together, all that information should kind of look the same. But if there's one in the middle where the dimensions are different, or that might be a flag to look for some, check that that's right or not.
Comparison, but um, when you want to measure the differences, you need to have a definition of what is right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the first step. What is
Define.
right?
And also think about, I think a lot of people think about, we just want to fix the problem that we have now without thinking longer term about,
Mhm.
um, when we create this product description, for example, we might only need to know the name, the color, and the size right now. But maybe in the future we want to know the material description too. So maybe we want to start building that in now, even though we're not going to use it right now. We in 12, 18 months time, maybe we're going to need that. Kind of thinking longer term about what you might need in the future in your product description, in the information you're collecting. um, it saves you having to redo the whole process again further down the line, which again saves time, costs, etc. So yeah, I'd say that's really important as well.
That's actually, Susan. That's one sentence, looking into the future, but that's a huge amount of thinking within a company when you consider they have multiple output channels where they need to serve, and um, uh, also a vision. Where is the company going in the future? What is the direction? So there's a lot of a whole world behind this one sentence you are just saying.
Yeah, and it could just be small things like maybe we don't have the brand or the manufacturer name right now, but we want to start collecting it. So it doesn't have to be everything, but it could just be like small little things that they don't make much of a difference to input right now, but it'll make a much bigger difference later down the line. And just actually communicating and speaking to the rest of the business and finding out what information they might need as well, what helps them, because maybe they need the manufacturer name, maybe we don't, but that could help them. So then we're having, not repeating efforts or causing extra work. Just defining kind of a standard or a naming convention, for example. So it could be for how you type out the manufacturer's name. It could be how you type out the colors, the product materials, the description, but having that all standardized so that everybody starts to talk and use the same language and terminology. That's really helpful. And even if you can't go back and fix what has been done, you could start from today and move forward and start to standardize things and make things better for the future. So
Yeah.
that maybe there isn't the opportunity to go back and clean what's been done.
And also, what I see is with merging of companies, you have for one product, for instance, different naming, but changing the naming has huge effect on the rest of this specific organization. So maybe you should keep both of this thing in place, but have a common understanding for the total company. So it adds actually an additional layer of data for the complete the total company, but you need sometimes to keep the wrong data because the company is working with it. You cannot change all systems available and depending on this data. So it's not just okay. It's wrong data. I just clean it and we're done. It has consequences.
Yeah, if it was as easy as that, we wouldn't have jobs, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to AI and cry in my Claude Code corner now. But it is the unfortunate truth is that it is complicated, right? It is
Mm,
something, and that's
yeah.
also I think the reason many people tend to ignore that data mess in the corner until it is too late. Because yeah, it is a complicated mess, and it doesn't immediately lead to well the revenue uplift you would like to see. It creates a diffuse set of savings, right, from lesser amount of returns or better spend analytics or less less money tied up in warehouse stock because you don't have the same product on stock 6 times under 6 different product numbers. But it is a
Yes.
bit diffused, and if you can actually would be better for the business case and better for the product data quality if you could just point to one thing and fix that one thing. But yeah, it's a messy beast you have to tackle. How do you see that with customers, Susan, trying to
Oh,
sort of start tackling that monster or start to identify that elephant when they yeah.
yeah, and it is a really overwhelming task. So I think the first thing is identify if you can't kind of give it to us and we'll just do it all. Identify your top performing products, for
Mhm.
example, and focus,
Mm.
the 80/20 rule, focus on the top 80% of spend or usage or etc. and focus on those first. You mentioned product codes. I see all the time either one product code with multiple descriptions or one description with multiple product codes. And I don't know if you see this. Sometimes even getting hold of the data can be really hard for certain organizations just to actually get visibility. But if you can get an export of your data, pop it in a pivot table, and just have the product code and the description and do that, you'll quickly see where you maybe have multiple descriptions per product code. And if you flip it round, if you have the description and then the product code, you'll also be able to see that. And that will flag very quickly to you any issues that you might have with multiple versions of the same product, which could
Yeah.
be sitting in multiple locations in your warehouse. It could mean, you could be sitting on excess inventory because you don't realize you've got a whole load of the same stock sitting over here somewhere else. No idea. Um, and I think there's a whole piece around when we are setting up these new products, are we doing a thorough search in our system to make sure it's definitely not there? Are we doing like partial keyword searches rather than a full name to search for the product? Oh, I've typed in the whole name, it's not there, so I'm going to create a new product. Actually, could be abbreviated, could be typos. Can we find another way to look for this? Or could we know the manufacturer, let's look at the whole list of products that that manufacturer has in our system to see if we can find it. Um, and there's a piece around that as well. Let's double check before we start adding new things into the system and new issues and new problems.
Yeah. And maybe getting back to the 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 product data or the
Mm,
cleansing process, right? So I think we correctly identified that it starts not even before you're getting data into the system, right? You have to define
yeah.
what is good, right? Or what is the product data model that I have and how have I defined various fields? Do I want to have metric or imperial? Um, is it millimeters or centimeters or meters that I want to have my dimensions in? Um, and maybe I even want to have uh, a certain um, stages or stage gates of product data quality, right? And then for
Yeah.
certain parts of my inventory or certain parts of my catalog, like my A catalog, that the highest revenue or the highest turn or the most critical part of my catalog, I want to have 95% accuracy or 99.9 accuracy. And for the B and C tail of my longer tail catalog, a lesser quality is acceptable. I don't want to say fine, but it's acceptable. You have that all defined, and then you are starting to go through that process and those distinct steps. Um, and I think we covered some of those steps, but maybe it's good to sort of highlight some of them where you see the most issues arising, right? So, do you see, like, if you look at your customers, or Chris, if we look at our customers, where do we see the most problems? Is that in the transformation part or the deduplication part, or is it standardization? Where does the sort of problems start hitting the fan?
The awareness of Susan, you said, and when entering a product, you should first look at what if it's already there, the purchasing person or they're not, they don't care, they just put it in because they need to work fast. So the awareness of consequences of having bad data should be all around the company, and this is something you cannot achieve in one day, but it's this awareness is very important, I think, to start really having a good, healthy product descriptions and information about the product and good data.
Yeah, I'd agree. So lack of standardization is a big issue.
Yeah.
The biggest and easiest way to kind of fix that is documentation. You very rarely see like best practice documentation or like a one-page cheat sheet on this is how you set up a product.
Mhm.
Having something as simple as that will get people to start inputting things in a more standardized, correct way, which will then lead to less problems down the line.
Yeah, I think also
But people are people, right? They're not that easy to convince always.
tooling tooling can help achieve
Yeah,
these rules, but people, you say, they are very inventive to avoid and go around this. So it's always there, but you can help with a good process, with good tooling, which directs them to the right place and not have all kind of well, deviations on this.
yeah,
Also find that very disturbing that it is all about the people, and that people will, I mean, it's the truth, people will find way to circumvent all the process you put in place or all the tools you put in place, and you can define the perfect architecture, but people still will be using spreadsheets to upload whatever
yeah,
product data in whatever quality they deem acceptable to just close
yeah.
that deal or just serve that single
Mhm.
customer.
Yep, we just need to get this on the system so we can get it shipped and put that sale through for this quarter or something. It happens. But again, documentation is really important because those people will come and go, but that process should stay the same. And if you don't have any
Yeah,
documentation, you're
sure.
you're you're in trouble. I mean, I don't think I've ever started a job with a handover document. I've had to figure out how to do stuff, but I've always left that same job with a documentation and screenshots and things like that. But, a little bit of time, a little bit of investment in something like that could make a huge difference.
Process and then tools. Well, first people and then process and
Yeah,
documentation and then
yeah,
tools. I think that is a conclusion we keep coming back to. And maybe I should create a mug or something with that on it. Um, but okay, so we you have that process then and that documentation. Um, you want to get that in place, right? Where do you
uh-huh.
start getting that documentation in place? Is that um, yeah? Where do you start?
Um, with the people who are inputting the information, and Chris said this earlier, and I say this a lot as well, it's the what's in it for me and the what are the consequences for my colleagues if I don't do this right, because I don't think we really talk about that enough when we do our jobs, right? I fill this in and then it goes somewhere else and then I never know what happens to it. But what it means is I haven't filled this bit of information in right. So somebody I work with is running around a warehouse trying to find something because I didn't put the information in right. But I have no idea that that has consequences.
Yeah.
So, you know, even doing like half a day job swaps, right? Just go and spend a day, half a day in the warehouse or with finance or whoever to actually find out what happens with that information in another part of the business can
Mhm.
be really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. What we often do with customers when we do an assessment, we will have all people uh, uh, around the table from the different departments. And then the boss is saying, "Oh, this process goes this and this," and then someone says, "No,
Yeah.
I'm doing this," and then he does this, and if I don't do this, it doesn't work. So
Yeah,
there are always you can document things, but then that's important. But there are undocumented processes
absolutely. Yeah.
in the organization, and there are in every organizations there are fixers who do things who nobody knows about, but if they don't do it, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
And that's typical what we see actually with every company when we do this kind of assessment. Yeah,
Yeah.
Those hidden heroes.
yeah, sure.
They think they're doing a really good job by saving the day, but actually by not telling anyone, they're not realizing that they could actually be causing more problems.
And then you're screwed if they go away or if they
Mhm.
actually die, which
Yeah.
also happens. I mean, no one uh, wants that to happen, but we've had cases where the key
Wow.
person in that process passed away and
Oh,
was unable to hand over his knowledge or her
yeah.
knowledge. Um, yeah,
I
that
I
that
I try to run my own business well with my team, so that we share the knowledge so that, one of us isn't there, things can
Yeah,
continue because you're right. It sits with that one person and then they disappear and everything falls apart.
of course, business goes on, and but it takes a huge amount of effort to pick things up at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I mean, what you're saying is true, Susan. Like, you have to share that or bring that knowledge down into the organization. I heard some people also sort of discuss the reasoning as well, like not just describe the steps and the process, but also the thinking behind it, right? Like, why are we doing this in the way we're doing it? I think that's super interesting as well. But yeah, you have to be ready for those unforeseen circumstances. Um, it is yeah, it is interesting that that is still where we are. It
Yeah.
starts with bringing everyone around the table, and I think, and it's not just about defining that happy flow or defining that perfect process where you're going to capture 100% of all the different cases, because I think it's better to accept that you'll have exceptions or you'll have the 2 to 5%
Yeah.
cases
Nothing's
where
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've talked about things that might be missing, but what if we're collecting too much information that's not being used? Are we wasting energy and time by inputting certain dimensions or attributes that actually nobody's using? So do we need them? So it's like getting everybody in a room again, like you said, and talking like, are we using all this information? Do we need it all? Because we may have needed it 10 years ago, but we might not need that now because,
Yeah.
technology's changed or times have changed or things are measured in a different way.
But it's clear that when you have wrong data or bad data, it will cost a lot of money. We made a calculation once, it's already a few years ago, that having to repair some data, it will cost per issue 460 euro. And it's not just
Whoa.
repairing this one item, but it's also in the other applications where this data is used. So you have to go over the complete chain of this information. So it has huge impact on the organization. It's I I didn't believe what I saw, but it really was the case. You had to do this, you had to do this, you have to maybe to have a recall for products because of wrong data. So it costs really a huge amount of money. It's all hidden costs, but it's there.
Yeah. If you actually did try to count it up, it would be terrifying.
Yeah, I think that that sort of captures the problem, right? So this 500 euro cost goes unnoticed because it's just part of daily operations that you fix things. But if you would invest that upfront and fix the process and the tools,
Yeah.
um, you already have the business case right there.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of related, a bit different. I'd done some work for a client, and it was to categorize return reasons for products that they were
Yeah.
selling, like jujitsu kit and stuff like that. And there were these kimonos, and there was like a really high number of them being returned. And it turned out that the main reason was that they were oversized. So people were returning them because they were too big. So just by put something as simple as putting that these are largely sized on the website, people could buy a size down and stop the costs of returns, shipping out new products, all that stuff. So even not necessarily within the actual product information itself, or something that's related but not part of, like, technically the product size is correct, right? But on people it's coming up big. But by looking at the return reasons, you can find that out. Data, I love data. Data can tell you so much.
Better to have clean data though than dirty data.
Oh yeah.
No, but it is the analytics is maybe the starting point, right? So you start looking at the output and sort of the yeah
Yeah,
the
what's it
feedback.
showing us? What's missing? What can't we see? What doesn't look right? And then that will start to guide you in the direction of what do we need to look at now. And then again, it doesn't have to be super fancy. Get a pivot table, start looking at products by description, by code. Um, and like I say, like, there's patterns and information and data. So if
Yeah.
you filter by description A to Z and look at a whole range of products that are similarly described, do all the dimensions and attributes match up, or is there any that stick out as a bit different? That can just be a quick flag or a check to
With
see if something doesn't look right.
with a lot of companies, people are, especially in the B2B area, there are a lot of people working many years for one company. Do you think they are kind of blind for this information,
Mhm.
searching for
Yeah.
this information?
Yeah, and I see this if I've been working on a project for a few weeks. I kind of call it like snowblind. You kind of everything merges into one. Like, I work in a tool, and I'll export the data into Excel for the client, and I swear I have checked it front ways, sideways, back ways, and I export it into Excel, and suddenly in a different view, something jumps out that's not right straight away. The other thing is, like, there can be ambiguous descriptions as well. So
Mhm.
say it's BL is for the color. Well, is that blue or black?
Yeah.
Little things like that, you know, can really mess up what's
Yeah,
going on. But definitely, if you're really familiar with certain data and descriptions, you kind of either it'll jump out straight away that something's not right, or your brain tricks you into thinking that it's right.
yeah, yeah.
That's all about the definitions again, right? So even before you
Mm.
get started, you need to understand, okay, do we define as a company BL as a shortcut for black or for blue? Um,
Yeah.
should we
Like
actually work
SS
with,
tends to be stainless steel, but is it, have a little cheat sheet again defining what those things mean.
yeah. I mean,
Because how many acronyms do you know that are different things in different industries? Like RAG is one that really gets me. So I started out in the 2000s, and RAG was a project management red, amber, green thing. But now it's retrieval augmented generation in IT, and it's like, but every time I hear RAG, I think red, amber, green. So, defining those things again and making sure we're all talking the same language is really important.
Is it, I mean, and it changes over time, as you just mentioned. Like you define it today, and it's red, amber, green. But in 5 years from now, it's retrieval augmented generation. That changes, right? That's also it's a living process or a living
Yeah, it's
definition.
fluid.
It's fluid.
Absolutely. So you have to review it, and again, somebody has to kinda take ownership and accountability, and again, it shouldn't just be one person, right? Because if they disappear, that's it, gone. So it has to be a bit of shared ownership there. But that's really important.
Yeah. Right. So it starts with the people and defining who is responsible for which step. Not too many people, I'd say, because if you have 10 people involved in the product data process, the process
Oh,
is no longer a process, it breaks down.
everybody's got an opinion. I have learned that one the hard way. I got, a client involved early stages of a taxonomy, and we ended up with about 30 versions and kind of ended we went into loads of detail, then they decided they didn't want that detail, and then we pulled it back. And so we kinda ended up pretty much where I started. So now when I build taxonomies, I build it, let the client have a look at it, then they can make the changes, and then also it's much easier to change it when it's already been categorized and classified to something else. Um, yeah, it's too many cooks spoil the broth. Have you heard that one before?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not too many people have those from different stakeholder groups in one room, right? So not all IT defining the product data for the whole
Mhm.
organization, not marketing defining the product data for the whole organization, not logistics, but bring stakeholders from each group together, or at least involve them in the process. Define the outcome of the process, or define the product data model that you want to have before you start sort of fixing the process and defining what your output should be, and then work backwards towards that definition and start finding where the discrepancies turn out and originate from, and start fixing those instead of just blindly trying to enrich all the data that you think you want to have to 100%. Just creating more data, but not higher
Mhm.
quality data.
Yeah.
Um, and then start looking to solutions or tools to fix those bottlenecks. Right. I think that's
Yeah.
sort of the standard approach. And I'm saying
Yeah.
that because I want to move towards AI. Right.
Yeah.
We started the conversation with AI a bit. It is the trend and
The
technology.
buzzword. Yeah. Everyone's
But
doing it, right? Or not?
well,
Everyone
everyone's doing
says
it.
they're doing it, but are they really?
Yeah, and then if is it really adding value the way you do it, right? So what we see in practice, and the thing that's also sort of confirmed by research already, is that a lot of these AI projects are not generating return on investment,
Mhm.
which, if you don't define your outcome or your process first, is not a surprise, right? You have to define success before you get started. What is success? How does it look like? Um, but let's discuss AI, and what have we seen going. What we're now sort of in year 3 of ChatGPT. Yeah, after the launch, where where are we, and what have we seen
It's
go right, and what have we seen go wrong?
Yeah, it's getting better. Where it's still kind of struggling a bit is I had a whole list of addresses, and the whole address was in one cell, and there were no separators, like commas for each line, so it was just all words with spaces. So I put it into ChatGPT, and it maybe got me like 60% of the way there, and then I had to do a lot of manual tweaking to do the rest. Um, but again, the more we give it that's messy like that it knows what it needs to be, the better it's going to get. So, for example, even 18 months ago, I was asking it for some stuff and it wasn't really giving me really good information. Yesterday, and it was also only really good at small batches of like 5, 10. Yesterday, I gave it 80 postcodes and it gave me the city associated with those postcodes. So it's getting better all the time. Um, and again, it can recognize, like, start to recognize the maybe product descriptions that you might not know what it is, and you want to check it. It may start to be able to figure that out, but it's still going to all be based on what it's learned from and what it already knows.
Yeah, and then there are, I see Stefan left the call, but,
Oh, did we scare him off? Talk of
yeah,
AI.
we'll just continue. I think
Yeah.
then there are of course the at what point in the process do you apply AI, and is there a specific AI for a certain part of the process?
Yeah,
Uh,
I would
I'm
definitely say that it's there's different tools for different jobs, right? There's not
yeah,
one tool that can do everything, and it's finding what works best for your organization. So you could have two companies in the same industry, but the
yeah,
data quality is very different in both. So the one tool could be very effective in one, and not so effective in the other. Um, and it might be test on small scale and see how it works.
yeah, and yeah, I think also there is specific when you, for instance, want to generate data, um, your base needs to be okay. I mean,
Yes,
when
yes.
your base of your data or your product data is not correct, it cannot generate correct descriptions, for
Yeah,
instance. So that's obvious. But you see also AI in the cleansing part at the front end, when data comes in to have good, to become good data. So you have to have give them also rules, because they're not always 100% correct. But
yeah.
you can say, okay, I have a probability of 90%. It's okay. I have a probability of 70%. We need a human in the loop.
I think you should always just have those eyeballs from someone who knows the data or the products at the
Yeah,
end. I mean, I'm a triple check kind of girl. So, whenever we do any work, it's checked, checked, and checked again.
yeah,
And I think that um, the other thing is, if you are training a model based on your data, then it's going to be better every time.
yeah.
If you're using a tool that's kind of been tested across a wide range of industries and different types of data, then the results might not be as good. But if you're building something specifically within your organization, then you're going to have better results as well.
And what we see in the market, that there are more and more tools specifically targeted to a certain industry, or to this kind of things, and they are becoming more and more accurate in certain tasks.
Yeah,
Not all tasks, but
yeah.
this specific task, they are targeted at for a certain industry, and they're good. I mean, can be better, but they are good for now.
Yeah, and that's it, right? We're not looking for perfect, but anything that helps us be more efficient, save us time, gives us less manual work, I'm all for that, absolutely.
Yeah, and then again, within businesses, what we see is that there is some hesitation, because people think, "Oh, I'm going to lose my job because of AI." Actually, no, it's going to change your job,
Yeah.
and but that's
Hopefully
also
take
a
away the
mindset.
bits that you don't wanna do, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh,
But,
Yeah.
I have noticed we've got a wee question actually on LinkedIn from
Ex-
Baz. He's
yes,
asking what
exactly.
the cons and pros from our perspective for having an MD and PIM team to avoid decision making in specific department, which doesn't support the whole company. Uh, Pros and cons. So actually having a team so that it's not a
Yeah.
department that makes the decision.
mhm.
Exactly. So how this is how I would interpret the question as well, is have that as a centralized data governance team or product data quality team instead of having local data governance stakeholders or owners that define these things on the department level.
Yeah.
Um, In your experience, Susan, what would you recommend?
I
Or
really think it depends on your organization and the type of data you have, the kind
yeah,
of products that you've got, and what is gonna work best for you. Um, Centralized is good if there's lots of communication, with the rest of the business to find out what's actually going on. I do think that having that top layer to oversee, and almost be impartial is quite good, because I think sometimes, like, if you're in a department, right, you could be biased, like, well, our product's better than that department's product, or we're more important than them. Whereas if you've got an MDM team, it's like everything is treated equally.
yeah, and also don't forget to involve legal when you're talking about certain topics and things, because on a day-to-day basis, you don't need certain data, but legally you need to comply to certain standards or something like that, and uh, that's data quality assurance for certain products. When you're working in the medical world, it's really important to have the data really well 100% correct. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and then, it's like it could be life or death, right? If you've
yeah,
not put the right
exactly.
information on a product or something.
Yeah,
yeah. So the benefits are, I think, clear, right? So you have a central team that defines that governance, that defines all the requirements from a legal perspective, that has the overview of the data needs of the whole organization. It's also, I think, underappreciated how complicated that job can be, or how technical that job can be. What we often see with our
Absolutely.
customers is that, yeah, the IT guy or the IT girl does MDM and PIM on the side, right? But it is a discipline, and it's a discipline with, I think, too little knowledge at the different stakeholders, and a piece of education. Well, both you, Susan, and us try to bring to the audience using this podcast, but also all the different webinars and the knowledge base and the websites that we run. Um, but it is underappreciated how deep that expertise can get, and that you tend to gloss over those details, even though they are very important. What are some of the disadvantages of doing this on a I would say company level scale instead of on a, yeah, business department level?
You're not as close to the product potentially as you would be if you're working in and on it. That communication piece might get, if you don't
yeah,
have a good relationship with the rest of the business. I mean, it depending on what it is, people kind of feel threatened and don't want to share information too, right? So there could be a little bit of, like, again, like, you're taking my job. I'm going to keep this knowledge and not share it with you. Um, I guess there could be, like, from a business point of view, costs associated with having a separate team.
Yeah.
Um, what about you? What do you think?
yeah. There are several aspects on this. Trust is a very important one. I think you need to build trust in your organization that we are working for the same goal, and uh, yeah, it's not it's not about quitting your job or hurting your position or things like that. And that's mostly what I see sometimes an issue with people keeping their knowledge to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference between centralizing the data governance and the sort of structural part of
Mhm.
this job, and the operational part, right? So you don't have to have the data onboarding centralized. You could. It's maybe more efficient if you have the same suppliers and the same channels on different business units. You're all selling on Amazon, then it makes sense. Or you all have Nike as a supplier, then it doesn't make sense to onboard that same product data differently in six different environments or six different countries, but just have one central onboarding team. But you could also just say, we accept that that is the case because there's maybe certain specific local variances, or it's a smoother
Actually,
process.
yeah, just thinking about that as well, just knowing from experience that there are some countries where like they might still be paper based and they're not even centralized yet, so it might not be possible. So I mean, there's a and people might go, really, but that's not as unusual as you might think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It is. Well, we are coming up for time. I do want to thank the audience for the great questions and the interactions and for sticking with us. And I would say be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. There's also plenty of webinars coming up. So stick around on our LinkedIn page and follow us there. And be sure to check out Susan, both her profile and the website. Um, Susan, thanks a lot for joining us too.
Thank
It
you.
was great.
An amazing discussion. Could talk for another hour.
Yeah.
I know, I know. I'm unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we have to wrap up, but we'll be sure to invite you back either on the podcast or as a webinar to host you again. It was a great
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mm, Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Follow us on your favorite channels and have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.